Welcome back to The Haunted Beard. I just finished watching Halloween 2 for the very first time. So, what are my initial thoughts? What did I think of it? Well, let's jump right into it. Halloween 2 came out in 1981. It's directed by Rick Rosenthal. John Carpenter served as a producer on this. He also served as a screenwriter as well, but he did not come back to the director's seat. Halloween 2 takes place immediately after the ending of the first film. The first actually few minutes are a bit of a recap. They're actually playing the ending scene from the first film. Michael falls out the window, and then Loomis looks out and he's gone, and the next one just picks up right after that, just keeps on going. I mean, really, the first two movies could be paired together quite well as one kind of giant film. It's basically just one big story. So this one opens up somewhat similarly to the first one. Also, quick note: the score is back, the same theme is back, but it's a little bit different. It's got a bit of an 80s synth kind of facelift to it. Just kind of an interesting note there. I actually didn't know that they had changed the score. I wasn't really expecting anything different. I just didn't know, so it kind of just kind of was interesting. They kind of revamped it a little bit, gave it a little 80s synth vibe. But anyways, the film really kind of starts off somewhat similar to the first film. The first film starts off with a kind of long tracking point of view shot. This one also has a tracking point of view shot. I actually think it's probably one of my favorite sequences of the entire movie, much like the first film was, where we are now following Michael Myers kind of through sort of through neighborhoods and kind of through backyards and streets and stuff like that. This one does kind of get interspersed with some editing. It kind of cuts to some other things, but I really like just kind of the movement and the flow to this entire sequence. There's something about just following him and just it being dark and just him sort of peering into people's houses. It's just creepy. I don't know, there's just something kind of about that from a visual perspective. It being dark outside, he's creeping around, and just you get these bright lights and you can see what's going on in people's houses. And I don't know, just kind of the flow and the movement of that sequence worked pretty well for me. I quite enjoyed it. There are some similar techniques that are used in this film as there were in the first. Namely, there is multiple shots where characters are just oblivious, and we see behind them, and Myers is, just kind of lurking around in the background. He's there watching and waiting, and they're none the wiser. And so shots like that are used multiple times. There's another shot that is done very similar to the first film where a kid kind of turns a corner and bumps into him. In this one, a kid's sort of half paying attention. He's listening to the radio. He kind of turns and bumps right into Mike Myers. And so there are just some sort of similar techniques that are used. Now, the central question is obviously, did I like this as much as the first one? And no, I didn't. It's not as good as the first one. Where it starts to kind of fall flat and drop a few notches from the effectiveness of the first film is there's just a handful of really just kind of silly, cheesy moments in this that just really kind of take you out of the mood that it's going for. One of the first ones is this mom is taking her son into the emergency room. Okay, the majority of the movie takes place at a hospital. Laurie Strode's getting taken to the hospital to recover, and Michael Myers is still on the prowl, hunting people down, killing people left and right. That's pretty much the gist of it. He's just trying to find Laurie Strode throughout the whole movie. This mom takes her son into the emergency room. He's got a razor blade stuck in his mouth. He's just gushing, pouring blood out of his mouth. She brings him in, and it's an emergency, and the nurse is just so nonchalant. She's like, "Oh, well, the doctor's not available right now. Can you wait in, waiting room number 3?" And it's like he has a razor blade lodged in his mouth, and there's blood everywhere, and it's just like, okay, it's the most unrealistic reaction. There's another one where one of the character Jimmy, who's I guess kind of Laurie Strode's sort of interest, I guess, boyfriend-ish, not really. Where he slips in this massive pool of blood that I don't know how he missed it, but he slips and knocks himself out, and it's just like, okay. My favorite, though, that actually cracked me up, made me laugh out loud is later on in the movie when Loomis is in a car with a policeman and he's trying to get him to turn the car around to go back to find Michael. And and he's like, "What is it that you cops do? Fire a warning shot?" And he just shoots his gun in the car, blows out the driver's side window or the passenger window, whatever, while they're just driving down the road. It's like, what is going on? It made me laugh. I thought it was hilarious. Um, but there's just a handful of just kind of really sort of silly and cheesy moments that really just kind of they just kind of kill the whole they kill the horror atmosphere. They kind of kill the vibe, and so it just doesn't work too well. Loomis for me in this is still a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes his dialogue and line reading just comes off as just he's just really hammy and goofy and over the top, and other times it works pretty well. I mean, when he's talking about Michael Myers and some of the dialogue kind of works well as he's talking about him, and kind of it comes across as effectively kind of creepy, and he's sort of building up the this mythical aspect of Michael Myers, and so he's kind of mixed there. Just in general, it's kind of this. It's similar to the first one to a degree. I mean, this is an older film; it's still 40 years old, and so there are some dated aspects. Some of the acting is not the best, and some of the dialogue's a little cheesy. But let's talk about the kills. The kills in this one is definitely more bloody than the first one. The first one is pretty, considering the film's reputation, it's kind of shocking how little blood the first film actually has. This one has significantly more blood than the first film, and there's a couple pretty decent kills in this. Probably the most, I guess, well-known one is the hot tub kill. That's a pretty good one. This guy and girl are in this hot tub. She's working at the hospital, but sort of takes a break from her shift and gets in a hot tub with this guy, and they like each other, whatever. And he gets up to look at the temperature gauge, and again, it's all happening behind her, right? She's totally oblivious. Mike Myers is in the background. He strangles the guy, and then he comes in. And there's this whole thing. She thinks it's her boyfriend, so she's kissing his hand and all this stuff. And turn around, oh, it's Michael Myers. And it's a decent kill. It's got some brutality to it. He keeps dunking her head in the water after he's turned the temperature way up, and it fries her skin off of her face and stuff like that. So it's a decent kill. I just feel like most of the kills were really kind of missing out on. There's still kind of the slower pacing in this movie. I just feel like some of the kills were really kind of missing out on the suspense and just sort of the tension build that the first film was really good at. The kills here just, they may have been more bloody, but I just feel like you kind of missed out on a bit of the suspense and the tension building. It just didn't quite reach the same levels as the first film. There is one shot of one of the kills that I liked, where a girl is trying to track down, one of the nurses is tracking down a doctor. She finds out that he's dead, and she spins him around in his chair. He's got like a shot needle or whatever in his eye, and she kind of like backs up and is freaked out. And then behind her again, but this time you don't see him. His face just kind of fades in from the background, and then he's there, and he kills her. And that's just kind of a cool shot. I just liked all of a sudden the kind of quick sort of fade in, where usually you see him the whole time, but this time you didn't. And then Michael Myers just fades in from the background, grabs her, puts the shot needle in her head, and kills her. And so I kind of like that shot. It was pretty good. Another one of the more kind of well-known sequences of this movie, even though I haven't seen it, I am somewhat aware of its reputation. There's kind of there's a chase sequence between, Myers finally tracks down Laurie Strode, and there's a chase sequence throughout the hospital, and it's just amazing. Again, sort of, you can't help but kind of compare how that sequence is edited compared to how it would be handled today. It's amazing how slow it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just interesting to see just kind of the juxtaposition, because it would just be edited and handled so differently today. It's just amazing how slow it is, and how long the shots are, and how few edits there really are. And I couldn't help but, Laurie gets to the point where she's trying to get in an elevator, right? And she's got the button click in, and we're waiting for it to come down the floors, and Michael Myers is, right behind her. And you just can't help but, like, there is a bit of a logical issue because, like, all this would be over if Michael Myers would just, like, jog. Like, you don't even have to run. It's like if he just stepped up the pace, like, a couple steps, like, he would have, he could grab Laurie, kill her, and it'd be all over. But, then you wouldn't have a movie. So, anyways, I don't know. Finally, I guess I should talk about the finale. The finale for me, it falls a little flat. Um, Laurie Strode and Loomis finally get Myers into this room, and Laurie shoots him in the head, and he doesn't die, but he's got blood, pouring down in his eyes, and he can't see, and so you just get this like continual uh, thing with him, or he just keeps swinging the scalpel back and forth, right? He can't see, so he's just kind of moving around the room, swinging his arm back and forth, trying to stab Laurie, and then he can't stab Laurie, so he moves over and he tries to stab Loomis, and then he can't stab Loomis, and it just doesn't work that well. It's just not effective or scary. It kind of just makes Michael Myers look a little goofy, almost slapsticky a little bit, and it just doesn't really work all that great. I will say, uh, the ending, they end with a bang, and there is a pretty cool shot of Myers walking out. There's an explosion, and he's walking out of the flames. He's just on fire. Just kind of a cool shot, I guess. Kind of a cool visual to almost end on. It's basically the end of the movie at that point. But they that's pretty much the end of it. They wrap it up. It's one complete story, two film story, and so that's how it ends. But obviously, that's not how it ends because we got a lot more of these. But those are just some of my thoughts on Halloween 2. Overall, like I said, it's not as good as the first one. And there are still elements of it that I enjoyed, but this one definitely has a lot more of a silly kind of cheesy factor to it that the first one just avoids and does a lot better with handling just the creepy atmosphere. And so I'm gonna give this one like a 5.5 out of 10. It's a touch above an average. So there's still some decent stuff in there, but it's just not in the same league as the original, but I guess that's pretty obvious, right? But anyway, so that's my thoughts on Halloween 2, and like I said, I'm going to be doing the whole series, so stay tuned for Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. This is the weird outlier of the franchise, but I will be reviewing that one next, so we will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.